everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to unpack one of the most debated, consequential, and honestly mathematically fascinating systems in modern democracy. Today, we're looking directly under the hood at the historical, mathematical, and structural mechanics of the U.S. election system, specifically the Electoral College. We're going to peel back the layers on exactly how it was built, how it actually functions right now, and how it fundamentally shapes not just campaigns, but the very policies that affect us all. Okay, let's dive into this and start with the core question that surfaces every 4 years, right? Why on earth do just a few states decide the presidency? We're going to trace the powerful cause and effect narrative of our electoral system. It's a story where historical compromises from literally centuries ago directly create the extreme political math we see playing out on our screens today. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the origins of the Electoral College. Second, slavery and the compromise. Third, the math of swing states. Fourth, distorting national policy. And finally, the interstate compact reform. All right, Section 1, Origins of the Electoral College. To get why the math works the way it does today, we absolutely have to start with what the founders originally intended. And this brilliantly illustrates the gap between theory and practice. On the left, we have Alexander Hamilton's vision. You can read it in Federalist 68. The framers originally designed the Electoral College as this calm, deliberative body. They envisioned independent electors, chosen for their wisdom, acting as a filter to protect the presidency from popular passions. But look at the right side. The reality is, organized political parties popped up almost immediately. So instead of independent deliberation, electors just started voting strictly down party lines. That grand theoretical design from 1787, it was completely overtaken by partisan campaigning in just a few short years. Which brings us to Section 2, Slavery and the Compromise. We need to be totally objective here and look at a hard historical reality. The Electoral College wasn't just some neutral compromise between large and small states. It was deeply entangled with the institution of slavery. If we look at the chronological timeline here, you see how quickly the original rules unraveled. In 1787, the Constitution gets drafted. But zoom ahead to the election of 1800. Those new party tickets we just talked about, they caused a complete tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, which exposed severe flaws in the voting rules. They had to scramble for a constitutional fix, leading to the 12th Amendment in 1804 to change how electors cast their ballots. So, the system we use today isn't the pure 1787 design, it's a patch job. So the crucial point is how this patched-up system allocated power. Enter the 3/5 compromise. This agreement counted 3/5 of the enslaved population to figure out representation. What that did mathematically was give a huge boost to the political power of slaveholding states. They got more seats in Congress, and because of that, more Electoral College votes. It handed a major built-in advantage to one specific region, even though the enslaved people being counted were entirely denied the right to vote. And this dynamic isn't just a footnote, it's foundational. Just listen to legal scholar Paul Finkelman. The Electoral College helped protect the interests of slaveholding states. The system cannot be understood apart from the Constitution's compromises over slavery and representation. Historians and legal experts are pretty much in agreement here. This compromise is the root of the disproportionate representation we saw in early American elections. Moving on to Section 3, the math of swing states. Let's fast forward from history to the present day and look at how those early rules, specifically the winner-take-all approach, have morphed into an extreme mathematical obsession with just a few geographical locations. Because of these rules, our country is basically split into two totally different tiers of voters. On the left, you have the battleground state. These places are hyper-competitive. They get flooded with intense campaign visits, relentless TV ads, and ultimately higher voter turnout. On the right, we have what researchers call the spectator state. Because these states predictably vote one way or the other, national campaigns largely just ignore them. Voters there are basically watching the election happen somewhere else, maybe grabbing a bucket of popcorn, which naturally leads to lower voter participation. 94%. Just let that sink in for a second. This statistic is absolutely wild, and it really exposes the severe concentration of resources and exactly how unequal the playing field has become. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is where the candidates actually physically go. Look at this. In the 2024 election, between the party conventions and Election Day, 94% of all in-person campaign events happened in just 7 swing states. 7. The remaining 43 states shared a measly 6%. Actually, 32 states didn't receive a single candidate visit during that entire critical stretch. Not one. And it's not just about rallies and television ads. This laser focus completely warps our whole information ecosystem. Get this, research from 2020 showed that 88% of pre-election online disinformation traffic was aimed directly at swing states. So if you live in one of these competitive areas, you aren't just being highly cornered, you're being absolutely buried in unreliable news and micro-targeted messaging. It creates a wildly different and unequal online experience compared to voters in safe states. Okay, Section 4, distorting national policy. This leads us to a really profound realization. The math of the campaign trail doesn't just dictate where politicians travel, it dictates how they actually govern and the policies they prioritize. Think about it. If you need a few very specific states to win the White House, the local issues in those states suddenly become top national priorities. Take Pennsylvania, for example. Local debates over fracking regulations there end up dominating national campaign speeches. Or Iowa. Supporting the ethanol industry is basically a non-negotiable prerequisite to run. Down in Florida, specific demographic groups have historically shaped the entire country's foreign relations with Cuba and Venezuela. This dynamic even impacts us globally. Foreign governments actually target swing states with retaliatory tariffs during trade wars because they know hitting those specific voters applies maximum political pressure on the president. Researcher David Stromberg really hits the nail on the head here. He says the Electoral College pushes candidate attention toward a small set of states, lowers participation in neglected states, and biases some presidentially controlled policies. The geographical quirks of our electoral map literally skew the priorities of the federal government. By pushing all the attention to a small set of states, the system naturally bends toward the economic and social interests of those pivotal locations, often completely at the expense of the broader national majority. Finally, Section 5, the Interstate Compact Reform. So, where do we go from here? Let's look at how some states are trying to fix this, not by tearing up the Constitution, but by using the Constitution's own rules. Basically, you have two paths to change the system. Path 1, on the left, is a constitutional amendment to just abolish the Electoral College entirely. But passing that requires 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of all state legislatures. Historically, incredibly tough to pull off. Path 2 on the right is what modern reformers are actually trying right now, an interstate compact. They are totally bypassing the tricky amendment process. Instead, they're using state-level legislation to leverage the power the Constitution already gives states to decide exactly how they award their electors. Let's move to and see how this builds into an actual functional legal workaround. The mechanics of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact are pretty clever. Step 1, an individual state passes a law to join the compact. Step 2, the agreement just sits there, completely dormant, until the states that have joined represent a combined total of 270 electoral votes. Why 270? Because that's the magic number needed to win the presidency. Step 3, the moment they hit that 270 threshold, the compact flips on, and all participating states agree to give their electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote. Boom. It effectively guarantees the presidency to the national winner. And this isn't just theoretical, there's real momentum here. Maine recently enacted it, and Virginia is making significant moves to join, inching the compact closer to activation. Now, there are other alternative ideas floating around too, like awarding votes by congressional district, which is what Maine and Nebraska do right now. But a quick heads up on that, researchers warn that if we apply the district method nationwide, it could actually make things worse. It might just import extreme gerrymandering straight into presidential elections without actually fixing any of the underlying math distortions. Wow, okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, right? From 18th century compromises to the algorithms running modern campaigns. I want to leave you with this one provocative thought as we wrap up. Look at the math, look at the history, and ask yourself, does our system successfully balance geographic representation, or does it merely allow a handful of battleground states to completely overrule the national majority? It's a profound question to keep in mind the next time you cast your ballot. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the mechanics behind the world around you.